How do organisms reproduce? Modes of reproduction. Generally, when we think reproduction, we consider two organisms for the process, one male and one female. But in some cases, a single organism can reproduce without any pairing. This is called asexual reproduction. Different organisms show different modes of asexual reproduction. Before we see them with examples, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. The first mode of asexual reproduction is binary fission. Binary fission means splitting into two. Amoeba, a single-celled organism, reproduces by splitting into two. It can split in any direction because it has no specific shape. But organisms like Leishmania splits in a specific direction as it has specific shape. Multiple fission means splitting into many. Some single-celled organisms like Plasmodium divides into many. This is called multiple fission. 3. Fragmentation. Spirogyra, an algae, breaks into fragments and each fragment grows into a new organism. This mode is called fragmentation. 4. Regeneration. Planaria and Hydra. If these organisms are cut into pieces, each piece can grow up into a complete individual. This is called regeneration. Budding. Hydra produce buds on their bodies. These buds get separated and can grow as an individual. This is budding. Vegetative propagation. In many plants, their cut body parts can be planted in the soil to get new plants. This is called vegetative propagation. Stem cuttings in roses, sugarcane, root cuttings in carrot, bud cuttings in potato are examples. Spore formation. It is the other method of asexual reproduction.
Mucor, a fungus, produces spores.
If these spores find suitable conditions, they germinate into new Spirogyra. This is how organisms reproduce asexually. Sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Do you know where the reproductive parts of a plant are located? The reproductive parts of the plant are located in the flower. Here is a flower. Let us identify the reproductive parts in it. Let's look at the reproductive parts inside the flower. This is the female reproductive part of the plant. It is called pistil. It has three parts: stigma, style, and ovary. These are the male reproductive parts. It is called stamen. It has two parts: anther and filament. Do you think flowers of all plants have both the male and female parts? No. In plants like watermelon and papaya, the flowers are unisexual. That means male and female flowers are separate. Whereas in plants like hibiscus and mustard, the flowers are bisexual. That means a flower with both male and female parts. What do these reproductive parts do? They produce the reproductive cells or germ cells. Anther is the part where male reproductive cells are produced. It produces pollen grains that are yellowish in color. Each pollen grain contains two germ cells and one pollen nuclei. The ovary contains ovules. Each ovule consists of female reproductive cell or egg cell. You know that fertilization means fusion of male and female gametes. Then, how do these male and female gametes come together for fusion? For that, the male gametes should reach the female gametes. But how do the pollen grains travel from anther to stigma? They travel from anther to stigma by the help of air, water, insects, birds, and other animals. The transfer of pollen from stamen to pistil is called pollination. If it occurs in the same flower or between the flowers of same plant, it is called self-pollination. If pollination takes place between two flowers of different plants, it is called cross-pollination. The pollen grains produced by the anther are transferred to the stigma of the pistil. The pollen grain germinates and produces a long tube called pollen tube into the style to reach the ovule. The pollen nucleus and two germ cells travel through the pollen tube and fertilizes the egg. After fertilization, the zygote divides several times to form an embryo within the ovule. The petals, sepals, stamens, style and stigma may shrivel and fall off. The ovule develops into a seed. The ovary grows to form a fruit.
Let us see the structure and function of different parts of a flower. Flower is the reproductive part of a plant. In this video, with the help of longitudinal section of flower diagram, we will see the different parts of a flower, and with the help of germination of pollen on stigma diagram, we will study the process of fertilization in flower. Let us begin with sepals. Sepals are the outermost covering of a flower. Mostly, they are green in color. Petals. These are petals. Petals are the second layer of flower, which are usually brightly colored. In some cases, they are white in color. In most cases, they attract the insects for pollination. Next, we see the stamens. Stamens are the male reproductive parts of the flower. It has two parts named as anther and filament. Anther. It is the part in which male gametes or pollen grains are produced. Carpel. This is carpel. It is present in the center of a flower and is the female reproductive part. It is made up of three parts. Stigma. It is the top part of the carpel, which is sticky. When pollen falls on the flower, they stick to the stigma. Style. Style is a long tube-like part that connects the stigma and ovary. Next, ovary. The swollen bottom part of the carpel is the ovary. The ovary contains ovules, and each ovule has an egg cell. Pollen grain germinating. Once the pollen lands on a suitable stigma, it produces a long tube that reaches the ovule. Male cells. The male cells present in the pollen grain travel through the pollen tube and finally reaches the egg cells that are seated in the embryo sac of the ovule. Female cells. The male cells have to reach the female germ cells which are in the ovary. After fertilization, the zygote divides several times to form an embryo within the ovule. The ovule develops a tough coat and is gradually converted into a seed. The ovary grows rapidly and ripens to form a fruit. Meanwhile, the petals, sepals, stamens, style and stigma may shrivel and fall off.
Human male reproductive system. In this video, we'll see the different parts of human male reproductive system and their specific jobs. Human male reproductive system is made up of different organs like testes, scrotum, vas deferens, seminal vesicles, prostate gland, penis and urethra. Human male reproductive system has two main functions. One, to produce the male reproductive cells, hormones and accessory materials. Two, to deposit them in the female reproductive system. Now let's see which part of the male reproductive system produces germ cells. The formation of germ cells or sperms takes place in the testes. They are present outside the abdominal cavity in a sac-like structure called scrotum. If testes are important organs of male reproductive system, then why they are located outside the abdominal cavity? Because sperm formation requires a lower temperature than the normal body temperature. Testes also produces a hormone called testosterone. What is the use of testosterone? It is a male reproductive hormone which regulates the formation of sperms and also responsible for the development of secondary sexual characteristics during puberty. Sperms that are produced in the testes need some support of fluid secretions to get delivered into the female reproductive system. Which organs produce those secretions? Prostate gland and seminal vesicles. They secrete certain fluid secretions that provide nutrients to the sperm cells. Now, let's see the journey of sperm cells. Sperm cells formed in the testes are traveled through a tube called vas deferens, and on the way, they are joined with the fluid secretions from prostate gland and seminal vesicles. The vas deferens is a common duct for both the sperms and urine. It is also connected to urinary bladder. The sperms are tiny bodies that consist of mainly genetic material and a long tail that helps them to move towards the female germ cell. How these sperms are deposited in the female reproductive system? The sperm from vas deferens enters another duct called urethra, which is surrounded and supported by a muscular organ called penis. Penis is the organ that deposits the sperms in the female reproductive system. It becomes hard and erect during the time of mating. Let us see the structure and function of different parts of male reproductive system. Let us begin with scrotum. This pouch-like structure is called scrotum. It is present outside the abdominal cavity. Testes are present in this scrotum. Do you know why the testes are located outside the abdominal cavity? You know that testes produce sperm, but the production of sperm requires a 2 to 2.5 degree lower temperature than the normal body temperature. Next, we move to testes. These are testes. An adult's testis measures with a length of about 4 to 5 centimeters and width of about 2 to 3 centimeters. The testis is covered by a dense covering. Now let us explore the inner parts of this testis. Testicular lobules. Each testis has about 250 compartments called testicular lobules. Each lobule contains 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubules. Do you know what spermatogenesis is? The formation of sperms is called spermatogenesis. These are seminiferous tubules. Seminiferous tubules are lined inside by two kinds of cells. They are spermatogonia and Sertoli cells. The male germ cells develop into sperm cells by meiotic divisions, whereas the Sertoli cells provide nutrition to the germ cells. The spaces outside the seminiferous tubules are called interstitial spaces. They contain small blood vessels and Leydig cells. Do you know what is the function of these Leydig cells? They synthesize, that means they prepare and secretes the testicular hormones called androgens. Next we move to rete testis. It is a network of delicate tubules that carries the sperm from seminiferous tubules to vasa efferentia or efferent ducts. Vasa efferentia. They are the ducts between the rete testis and epididymis. Epididymis.
It's a highly convoluted duct that passes the sperms to the vas deferens. Vas deferens. The epididymis leads to vas deferens. The vas deferens ascends to the abdomen and loops over the urinary bladder. Seminal vesicle. They are a pair of tubular glands that secrete a fluid, which is a part of semen. Prostate gland. It is a gland located between bladder and the penis. It secretes some fluids that nourish the sperm. Bulbourethral glands. They are a pair of P-shaped glands. They secrete lubricating mucus that helps in the lubrication of penis. Do you know the other name of bulbourethral glands? They are also called as Cowper's glands. Urethra. The urethra originates from the urinary bladder and extends through the penis. Penis. It is the male external genital organ. It is made up of a special tissue that helps in erection of the penis to facilitate insemination. Gland penis. The enlarged end of the penis is called gland penis. The gland penis is covered by a loose fold of skin called foreskin. This is all about the different parts of human male reproductive system.
Female reproductive system. Let's see the different parts of the female reproductive system. Ovaries. There are a pair of ovaries in the female reproductive system that contain the premature egg cells. Oviducts. There are two oviducts which unite into an elastic bag-like structure known as uterus. Uterus. It is called the womb where the implantation and development of baby takes place. Cervix. The uterus opens into the vagina through the cervix. Vagina. It is the passage where sperms are deposited by the penis of male reproductive system during sexual intercourse. Now let's see the production of female gametes. When do girls start producing egg cells? When a girl is born, the ovaries already contain thousands of immature eggs. By reaching puberty, the eggs start maturing. One egg is produced every month by one of the ovaries. The egg released by the ovary is collected in the fallopian tubule. It is the place where the fertilization takes place by the fusion of sperm and egg cells. Then, how do the sperms reach fallopian tubule? The sperms get deposited in the vagina of the female reproductive system by the penis of the male reproductive system during sexual intercourse. The sperms travel towards fallopian tubule and finally reaches the egg cell and fertilizes it. The hormones secreted by the ovaries prepares the uterus to receive and nurture the growing embryo. The walls of the uterus becomes thick and richly supplied with blood to nourish the growing embryo. The fertilized egg, the zygote, gets implanted in the lining of the uterus and starts dividing. Placenta is a special tissue that helps the embryo to get nutrition from the mother's blood. It is embedded in the uterine wall and provides glucose and oxygen to the embryo. Placenta also transfers the waste generated by the embryo into the mother's blood. The development of the child inside the mother's body takes approximately 9 months. This period is called as gestation period. The child is born as a result of rhythmic contractions of the muscles in the uterus.
Let us see the structure and function of different parts of female reproductive system. Ovaries. These are ovaries. Girls are born with a pair of ovaries that contain thousands of immature eggs. After reaching puberty, ovaries start producing eggs. One egg is produced every month by one of the ovaries. Ovaries also produce female hormones like estrogen and progesterone. Fallopian tube or oviduct. There are a pair of ducts that are meant for collection of egg released by the ovary. The egg waits in the fallopian tubule for the sperm to unite with it. If a sperm reaches the fallopian tubule when the egg is residing in it, then the fertilization takes place. After fertilization, the zygote reaches the uterus. Uterus. This is an elastic bag-like structure. It is also called as womb. After fertilization, the zygote reaches the uterus. It further divides to form embryo. The uterus prepares itself every month to receive and nurture the growing embryo. The lining of uterus thickens and is richly supplied with blood to nourish the growing embryo. The embryo gets implanted in the uterus and develops into a baby. Cervix. It is the passage between uterus and vagina. Vagina. It is long passage through which sperms enter into the female reproductive system during sexual intercourse. One end of vagina is connected to cervix and the other end opens out. This is all about the structure and functioning of female reproductive system.
Menstrual cycle. Do you know the functions of female reproductive system? The female reproductive system has the following functions. 1. The ovary releases egg cell for fertilization. 2. It also secretes some hormones to make changes in the uterus. 3. The uterus gets prepared to host the embryo till it is completely grown into a baby. Once the egg is released by the ovary, the hormone secreted by the ovary makes the uterus wall thick and lined by blood and mucus. This would be required for nourishing the embryo if fertilization had taken place. If the egg is fertilized, it gets implanted in the cushioning of the uterus. But what happens if the egg is not fertilized? If the egg is not fertilized, it lives for about 1 day. Then the blood lining of the uterus is no longer needed, because if there is no fertilization, then there will be no implantation. So the lining of blood along with mucus sheds out through the vagina. It may take 2 to 8 days. This cycle of events takes place every month periodically and is called menstruation. The span of menstrual cycles is about 28 days. When do the menstruation begins in girls? A girl can start her period any time between the ages of 8 to 15. It all depends on the genetics and other factors. This is all about the menstrual cycle. If you find the video helpful, please like it and share it to your friends.
Sexual maturity in human beings. Reproduction in human beings is sexual type and involves 2 organisms, one male and one female. Sexual reproduction means the fusion of male and female gametes. So, the male and females should be able to produce reproductive cells or germ cells for the process of reproduction. But just the production of male and female cells is not enough to complete the process of reproduction. Some bodily changes should happen in the bodies of males and females. These changes facilitate the process of reproduction. When do boys and girls start producing germ cells or gametes? At what age the bodily changes in boys and girls begins to happen? How these bodily changes helps in the process of reproduction? Let us see in detail. But before we see that, please subscribe to our channel if you have not subscribed and press the bell icon to get the latest updates. Boys and girls are born with some special tissues that can produce germ cells. But this tissue is not matured until they reach some age. During childhood, the resources like the food are mostly used by the body for general growth. That is why there is a rapid growth in children between the age of 2 to 12 years. After some years, the general body growth begins to slow down and the reproductive tissues begin to mature. This period during adolescence is called puberty. What are the signs that indicate that the bodies of male and female are ready for reproduction? Growth of new hair in the armpits, genital area, and on hands and legs. Growth of facial hair and change of voice in boys. The enlargement and erection of penis in boys during daydreams or at night sleep. Beginning of menstruation or periods in girls. The breasts grow bigger and hips become wider in girls. These changes in the bodies of males and females indicate that they are ready or getting ready for the process of reproduction. The period in which these changes happen in the bodies of boys and girls is called puberty. At what age do boys and girls enter puberty? There is no specific age, but they enter into puberty in adolescence. Adolescence is the stage between childhood and adulthood. How do we know that puberty has started in someone? We can notice the onset of puberty in boys and girls with some noticeable changes happening in their bodies. Some changes are common in both boys and girls, like thick hair growing in new parts of the body, such as armpits and the genital area between the thighs. The skin in this region can also become darker in color. Thinner hair can also appear on legs and arms. The skin frequently becomes oily and they might begin to develop pimples. There are certain changes observed only in boys, like growth of hair on the face and voice begins to crack. The penis occasionally begins to become enlarged and erect, either in daydreams or at night. The changes observed only in girls are breast size begins to increase with darkening of the skin of the nipples at the tip of the breasts. They begin to menstruate. All of these changes take place slowly over a period of months and years. For example, boys may develop a thin mustache or a patchy beard in the beginning of puberty, but slowly in 2 to 3 years of time, they may grow a thick mustache and complete beard. In the same way, girls may develop small breasts in the beginning of puberty, but in the time of few months to years, they may develop fully grown breasts. In some people, these changes happen early and quickly, while in others, they can happen very slowly. But even after attaining sexual maturity, all boys may not develop a thick mustache or beard. All girls may not get a bigger breast. Boys and girls need not worry about their beard, mustache, or breast size. It all depends upon the individual hormone levels and genetics. All the adolescents should realize one thing, that differences are common. As people are different in general body features like height, weight, skin color, etc., people also will have differences in secondary sexual characteristics like body hair growth, growth of beard and mustache, penis size, breast size, etc. These changes are just the signals that show the sexual maturity of the individual. How these changes helps in the process of reproduction? The changes in the puberty helps in the process of reproduction and childbirth. For example, certain changes like growth of new hair on the body parts, growth of mustache and beard in boys, enlargement of breasts in girls are the signs of their sexual maturity. Do you know how the enlargement and erection of penis in boys helps in the process of reproduction? In human reproduction, the males deposit the male germ cells in the female reproductive system. Penis is the male organ that helps in the deposition of male cells in the female reproductive system. Penis has to become enlarged and erect to facilitate the deposition of male cells into the female reproductive system. Then how menstruation in girls is related to reproduction? After fertilization, the development of embryos to babies takes place in the uterus of female reproductive system. So, for this purpose, the uterus has to be made ready. The walls of the uterus get lined by blood vessels and new tissues to accommodate the growing embryo. If fertilization takes place, the zygote develops into a baby utilizing the preparations made in the uterus. But if the fertilization do not happens, the temporary blood lining of uterus sheds and expels out through vagina. This is how the menstruation helps in the process of reproduction. How the growth of breasts related to reproduction. In mammals, reproduction does not end by just giving birth to babies. After the birth, the babies has to be fed by the mother's milk for some time. Female breasts have mammary glands that produce milk to feed the babies. So, that is why breasts grow in size in girls during puberty. This is all about the sexual maturity in boys and girls.
Reproductive health. My reproductive system started producing sex cells. Can I participate in a sexual act and produce babies? No. Before you participate in a sexual act, you should consider the possible consequences. What are the consequences involved in participating in a sexual act? The major consequences involved in participating in a sexual act are health consequences. Do you know, during sexual intercourse, there is a very intimate contact between the male and female bodies. There may be a chance of transfer of germs and infections between the partners. It may cause diseases. What kind of diseases are spread by sexual contact? The diseases that are spread through sexual contact are called sexually transmitted diseases. In short form, they are called STDs. Here are a few examples of STDs. Gonorrhea and syphilis. These two diseases are caused by bacteria. Warts and HIV or AIDS. These two are caused by virus. The sexually transmitted diseases can be prevented by using a condom. What is a condom? Condom is a rubbery covering worn on the penis or inside a vagina during sexual intercourse to prevent the sexually transmitted diseases up to some extent. Condoms help to prevent pregnancy also. When a girl is ready to be pregnant. To become pregnant, a girl should be physically, mentally, socially, and emotionally ready. If not, the health of the girl will be adversely affected. Then how to stop pregnancy? We can avoid pregnancy by using contraceptive methods. 1. Mechanical barriers. Example, condoms. By using male or female condoms, one can avoid pregnancy. Condoms act as a barrier and prevent the entry of sperms into the female reproductive system. 2. Chemical contraceptives. Example, oral pills. These pills change the hormonal balance of the woman and stop the release of egg and fertilization. But changing hormonal balance leads to so many side effects. 3. Contraceptive devices. Example, copper T or loop. The loop or the copper T are placed in the uterus to prevent pregnancy. They can cause irritation and leads to various side effects. 4. Surgical methods of contraception. Examples, vasectomy or tubectomy. Vasectomy. If the vas deferens in the male is blocked by a small surgery, sperm transfer will be prevented. This method is called vasectomy. Tubectomy. If the fallopian tubule in the female is blocked by small surgery, the egg will not be able to reach the uterus. Surgical methods are permanent. They are safe in long run and followed by families who doesn't want pregnancy. What happens if contraceptives are failed and unwanted pregnancy happens? Medical termination of pregnancy. Pregnancy can be removed by medical surgery, but it will be done only under some special circumstances. Abortion or medical termination of pregnancy is illegal if it is done by someone's choice. It is misused in our country. Many families have reluctant to girl child. It is leading to illegal sex-selective abortion of female fetuses. For this reason, prenatal sex determination has been prohibited by the law.
Thanks for watching. Please like the video. Please share this video with your friends. Please subscribe to Grade Booster channel. Press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. Check the description to find links of other useful videos. Check the end screens for our new videos.